History has a lot of partitions, whether countries are taking chunks out of others, or dividing a country or area between others, or settling disputed territory. I made a video about some partitions that could have potentially happened in Europe, and in this one we're now going to talk about the Americas. While continental spanning wars were much more rare for North and South America, that doesn't mean that there weren't a lot of things that could have happened. For this first partition, we're looking at the states of Alaska and Maine. Both of these states had disputed borders with British Canada at different times in history. Maine had a disputed northern border in the 1830s, and in 1842 they partitioned the disputed territory to form the modern border. Alaska had a similar situation after the US purchased it on its southeastern border due to some gold resources that were found in the area. But it was arbitrated in 1903, and thus we got the modern border. Both partitions of these disputed areas were compromises. So if these disputed areas were entirely ceded to the United States, the map would have turned out like this. Meanwhile, if they would have been entirely ceded to British Canada, it would have turned out like this. Small changes, but definitely weird to imagine. Another partition involving the United States actually involves a state within the United States, Texas. After the US decided to annex the Republic of Texas and fought a war with Mexico over Texas's western border, the US now had a huge swath of territory that could potentially become new states in addition to Texas. The United States, though, had been attempting to keep a balance of slave states and free states to try and delay something like a civil war, so they wanted to make sure that they would add enough states to keep the balance. In addition, some thought Texas was way too big, so they wanted to possibly reduce its size. In real life, they ended up making Texas go from this to this, and admitted California as a free state, leaving a very shaky balance, and the rest of the area was just territory that would become states much later. But there were a lot of proposed ideas. The most interesting idea was from Senator John Bell. For a while, there was a possibility that the entire territory west of Texas would just become two large free states of California and New Mexico. So John Bell proposed that as a counter to that, Texas would give a tiny bit of land up, but would be divided into two states along the Colorado River. No idea what the second Texas would have been called, but imagining a United States with a split Texas and a Mexican border looking like this would be really weird. Meanwhile, all the way down in South America, there was a potential for the country of Paraguay to have been partitioned by its neighbors after the Paraguay War, also known as the War of the Triple Alliance. Paraguay was always seen as a breakaway province of Argentina in its early history, so Argentina always had claims over it. Meanwhile, Brazil also had claims on parts of the country, as well as the fact that the Chaco region was also disputed with a third country, Bolivia. After Paraguay decided to declare war on Argentina, Brazil, and Uruguay for 3 years and lost, it took the intervention of the United States to mediate the peace and to prevent Paraguay from being swallowed up entirely. If that never happened, it's likely we'd have Paraguay partitioned in a way similar to this. It's possible that after this, the Chaco region dispute could have led to a conflict with Bolivia and Argentina or Brazil, but either way, it's definitely an interesting scenario. For the final partition, we once again go back to Canada. Its province of Quebec at many times had wanted to secede from Canada, and there were two referendums over it in 1980 and 1995. The second one only failed very narrowly. One of the issues was the idea that if Quebec would secede, instead of causing problems by having the whole province leave Canada, that perhaps the areas that voted no could remain with Canada, and thus there would be a partition of Quebec between areas that will become independent and areas that would stay in Canada. There are logistical problems with this regardless of how it would have happened, and out of the proposed plans there are problems with each of them. But say we went with, this one, and just decided that turning Montreal into Cold War Berlin would have been a bad idea, we'd have a really weird looking Quebec. Overall, all of these partitions only exist in hypothetical timelines that never happened, but at the same time, it goes to show you how some small events in history could have drastically changed what the world looked like. So thank you all for watching and subscribing. But hey, if you're interested in seeing nice looking maps of North or South America with these partitions and want to support this channel, all Patreon supporters of my channel are going to get high resolution digital maps I've made of these partitions like the one you see here. The next time I make a video about potential partitions, we're going to focus on Africa and the Middle East. Until then, I'm Emperor Tigerstar, and I'll see you guys next time.